What would you do if the entire world wanted to know your deepest secret? Imagine being one of the most famous people on Earth. Every move you make is photographed. Every rumor becomes a headline. Every change in your appearance sparks endless speculation. Now imagine receiving a diagnosis that, during the 1980s, was almost considered a death sentence. That was the reality for Freddie Mercury. For years, fans noticed that something was changing. He looked thinner. He stopped touring. Public appearances became increasingly rare. The tabloids were relentless. Yet Freddie never confirmed anything, not until the day before he died. So, why did one of rock music's greatest legends choose silence? The answer is far more complex and far more human than many people realize. By the late 1980s, Queen remained one of the biggest bands in the world. But behind closed doors, Freddie Mercury was facing a battle few people knew about. Around 1987, he was diagnosed with HIV, which later developed into AIDS. At the time, there was no effective treatment capable of controlling the virus as there is today. Outside his closest circle, almost nobody knew. As Freddie appeared less frequently in public, newspapers began publishing constant speculation. Every photograph became proof. Every absence became another rumor. The British tabloids seemed determined to expose his condition before he was ready. But Freddie refused to respond. To understand his decision, we have to remember what AIDS meant during the 1980s. Today, HIV is a manageable medical condition for millions of people. Back then, it carried enormous fear. Many people didn't fully understand how the virus spread. Some believed they could become infected simply by being near someone living with AIDS. Patients often lost jobs. Families faced discrimination. Friends disappeared. For celebrities, the situation could be even worse. The disease often became bigger than the person. Instead of being remembered for their achievements, they became known only for their diagnosis. Freddie Mercury wanted something different. Those closest to Freddie later revealed that he never wanted sympathy. Queen drummer Roger Taylor explained that Freddie didn't want to become an object of pity and curiosity. He didn't want journalists circling around him, waiting for the next update about his health. Instead, he wanted people to focus on the music. This reflected Freddie's personality. Although he was explosive on stage, off-stage he was famously private. He rarely gave interviews. He almost never discussed his relationships. And he strongly believed that his medical condition belonged to him, not to the newspapers. Something remarkable happened after Freddie learned he was seriously ill. He didn't stop working. In fact, he worked even harder. His assistant Peter Freestone later recalled that Freddie poured every ounce of energy into recording music because nobody knew how much time remained. Whether he had 6 months or 6 years didn't matter. He simply wanted to leave behind as much music as possible. Albums like The Miracle and Innuendo were created during this difficult period. Even as his body weakened, his voice remained astonishingly powerful. Songs such as The Show Must Go On have since become symbols of extraordinary courage. Many fans now hear those lyrics very differently than they did in 1991. There was another reason Freddie stayed silent. He wanted to protect those closest to him. According to Peter Freestone, Freddie feared that if he publicly admitted having AIDS years earlier, reporters would constantly harass his family. Imagine newspapers calling your parents every time you disappeared from public view, asking whether you were still alive. Freddie didn't want that burden placed on the people he loved. He believed his illness should remain a private matter between himself, his doctors, and the few trusted friends who already knew. By November 1991, Freddie's condition had become impossible to hide. Rumors were everywhere. Finally, on November 23rd, he released a short public statement. He confirmed that he had tested HIV positive and had AIDS. He explained that he had chosen to keep the information private in order to protect the privacy of those around him. He also urged people everywhere to join the fight against the disease. Less than 24 hours later, Freddie Mercury passed away. He was only 45 years old. Ironically, the secret Freddie fought so hard to protect ultimately transformed public awareness. His death forced millions of people to confront the reality of AIDS. For many, it was the first time the disease had a familiar face. The following year, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert brought together some of the biggest names in rock history while raising awareness and funds for AIDS research. His passing became a turning point in the public conversation surrounding HIV and AIDS. Not because Freddie wanted to become a symbol, but because his life inspired compassion instead of fear. More than 3 decades later, people still debate whether Freddie Mercury should have spoken publicly sooner. But perhaps that debate misses the bigger picture. Freddie never believed his illness defined him. He wanted the world to remember the songs, the performances, the unforgettable voice. And perhaps that's exactly what happened.